welcome to Shelf Byte, a short-form, spoiler-free review series featured here on the Shelf Addiction podcast. I am your resident reviewer and host, Tamara. I will feed your shelf addiction by sharing my bite-sized book and audiobook reviews. In just a few minutes, you'll know my opinion on whether you should be saving space on your coveted bookshelves by adding this title to your collection, or if you should just borrow it or pass on reading it altogether. If you love long-form bookish chats, check out the Shelf Addiction podcast feed, available wherever you are hearing this episode. Let's begin. Today I am reviewing Mr. Magic, written by Kiersten White, narrated by Rebecca Lowman, published on August 8th, 2023 by Del Rey and Random House Audio. The hardcover comes in at 295 pages, and the unabridged audio runtime is 10 hours and 23 minutes. First, I'm going to share a summarized synopsis, and then I'll jump into it. In this supernatural thriller, former child stars reunite 30 years after a tragic accident shuts down the production of the classic children's program, Mr. Magic. As they come together, they begin to uncover the tragedy that ended their show and the secret of its enigmatic host. However, as they reclaim parts of their past, they begin to question whether they have been lured into a trap. Before I dive in, thank you to Penguin Random House for giving me access to this audiobook. So first up, why did I pick this book? You guys know I'm very picky when it comes to titles that I willingly agree to review, and it's something that kind of just hit right when I read the synopsis. It's that spooky time, right? We're headed into fall. It's September, although technically I read this in August, but it's September now. The weather is changing. We're sliding out of summer and into fall, and I wanted something that would reflect those vibes. I wanted something that was a little creepy and supernatural or paranormal, and something that definitely had a dark undertone to it, and this book delivered. So let me start with the things that I liked about Mr. Magic. So have you heard of creepypasta? I have, and this is what Wikipedia has to say. Creepypasta is a horror-related legend that has been shared around the internet. The term creepypasta has since become a catch-all term for horror content posted on the internet. These entries are often brief, user-generated paranormal stories intended to scare readers. Creepypasta almost has a tone to me, right? It sounds like it could have been maybe something that is a rumor posted on the internet. So it feels like it could have the vibe of creepypasta, and that is what I would put this book in, because Mr. Magic is like this elusive show that no one knows a lot about. Even the stars of the show really don't know what the show is about or how the show worked or anything. The main character in this story was taken away from the show by her father, and they were in hiding until she was an adult. Through some circumstances, her childhood friends resurfaced, and they came to her excited to see her again and to meet up with her again. And she knows nothing about them. She doesn't remember them. She doesn't remember the show. She doesn't remember why she left the show. She doesn't remember a lot of things from that time in her life. So she takes it upon herself to use this as an opportunity to discover why they were in hiding, what wasn't her father telling her. And in the meantime, she wanted to reconnect with these co-stars that she felt that were her friends, even though she couldn't remember them. So one of the things that I liked most was the relationship between these 5 adults. And not only that, I enjoyed that they were all not reliable people. They were not reliable narrators. You couldn't really tell who had a motive, who was lying, what is the reason they're lying. It was a lot of confusion as far as that aspect, which also led into the vibe of the show being even more creepy, because no one would want to say Mr. Magic's name. Why is that? So these 5 adults, they go into this home together, and they are there to do a podcast. And this podcast is supposed to reignite excitement for Mr. Magic, and could it bring the show back? And so while our characters are kind of flailing through this experience, we, the audience, are as well. This book does rely a lot on symbolism, which I at first couldn't grasp right away. I'm like, what are we talking about here? What is this? But slowly it kind of started to materialize, and I realized exactly like, what is this story about? So this book is a little complex. It is a little strange. And like I said, it's a little not black and white, right? So you do have to kind of get into the mind of these characters and imagine being a child on a show where you don't have a cast of people working with you. It's just those 5 kids playing and doing magic together. There's no grip person or camera person or director or producer. There's no like staff of people running around. It's a black void that these children play in, and they're creating and making things. So while that's happening, you get these eerie vibes because Mr. Magic is described in a way that's kind of scary. And the whole time in the house that things are happening, and you're like, wow, this is definitely supernatural. But is it really, or is it only symbolic, or is it really supernatural? Those are some of the questions that arise as you're reading it. So as I mentioned in the synopsis, there is a tragic accident that occurs, and this is the thing that motivates our main character to figure out what happened, what are they running from, why were they hiding, because she thinks this accident is her fault. And of course, all of that comes to light in the book, and it's very well explained, and everything makes sense. That is another thing that I like. The dots are connected in the end. All of the moving parts are connected in the end. And while it's sometimes a little loopy and not a, direct line between A and B and C and D, it comes together in the end and it gels. So between the way that the story is unfolded, between like getting a glimpse of the past and being in the present through a podcast and with these adults interacting in this community that's a little bit strange, and then of course add the unreliability of these perspectives and the creepiness of something supernatural happening, but you're not sure exactly what it is. It makes it kind of unsettling at times to read, but it's like you're in this spot where you can't stop listening if you're listening to the audiobook. The narrator was so good. Another aspect, I think the narration really added and amped up the story even more. And I finished this in 2 days. So I was really into it. Like I literally, once I hit play and the story started, things got going really quickly, and I was really involved in trying to figure out what was what. Now for my rating. I rated Mr. Magic 4 out of 5 stars. It was a solid 4-star read. It was very entertaining. I got all the vibes I wanted to out of it, and I was satisfied with the ending. Even though the road might have been a little bumpy here and there, it all tied up in a nice, tidy bow, which I appreciate. Who would I recommend read this? So again, I'll mention the term creepypasta. If you watched, for example, Channel Zero on Sci-Fi, that was a creepypasta style show. And actually the first season also was about a children's show. Is that influence there? I'm not sure, but it definitely had like a weird children's show theme. So for example, if you liked Channel Zero, you would like this book. If you like creepypasta on the internet, you would like this book. If you enjoy like themes of religion and supernatural tied together, you'll like this book. If you like a plot that is not necessarily straightforward, then you would like this book. Now, would I recommend that you add this to your physical or digital shelf? Or should you borrow it from the library, or should you skip it? Obviously, with a 4-star rating, I'm going to recommend that you add it to your digital or physical shelf. Very good read. Definitely I recommend on audio. And yeah, that's that. Let me know how you rated this book. Share your thoughts on this title or today's episode by answering my question or poll directly on Spotify. If you're listening on Spotify, you can share with me your feedback, thoughts, or questions with a tap of your screen. That's it for today's Shelf Bytes. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like it and share it with your bookish friends. If you'd like to reach out to me, you can find me everywhere at Shelf Addiction. Until next time, happy reading. Take care of yourselves. Bye, guys. If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to show your support, there are a few things you can do. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review, or like this episode on your favorite podcast player. It seems so simple, but it really helps me out. You can share this podcast with other book nerd friends or on your favorite social media space. You can also join the Shelf Addiction Patreon family. For as little as $2 a month, you will help us produce even more awesome content for your ears. You can also consider joining the Shelf Addiction official Facebook group, where we talk all things bookish and more in a safe space. The Shelf Addiction podcast is a part of the Nerdy Maven network. You can also reach us via email at info@shelfaddiction.com. Thank you for listening.